Hey guys, uh, it's your boy Mancini the Amazing. So here I am. I entered into the TokenMinorities Summer Showdown, and this is me at the end of round one pool. So here's my matchup. I obviously am Electric number 3546, Team Breath Mence. So this is what I winding up with my draft. So I went to Heatran. I had the last pick in the round, so I had the wheel. At the end of round one, I took Heatran and Mega Gyarados. And then I was hoping that one of the laddies would be left, either Latias or Latios, but it was taken, and I ended up going with Hydreigon instead and Roserade, giving me a very powerful double dark offensive spam, which is pretty nice because in 8mon, sometimes you only have the one dark resist, and Hydreigon's got its own fire coverage as well as its powerful dragon stab, as well as the steel coverage to break through fairies. So between them, hopefully we could break through any of the fighting opposing dark types or fairy types that I encountered. And then I had Roserade there to give me spikes and toxic spikes to support if that was what I needed, as well as just like a leech seed switch and a toxic spikes absorber, which is pretty nice within itself. And then the next one, I figured I would get Ribombee and Claydol, because Claydol was only 3 points, which is the same points I got it for in a Tier 3 below league as well, which is just... Claydol is a useful Pokemon. It's got really good defenses, and Rapid Spin, and Levitate, and Stealth Rock. So I currently have, with Gyarados pre-Mega, I have 3 ground immunities, as well as a technical resist in Ribombee to support my Heatran. So that's pretty useful. And then just Claydol gave me Rapid Spin support for Sticky Web, and Sticky Web is just there so that Hydreigon, an offensive Roserade, and like Gyarados has started to revenge with Scarfers. They can just go off a lot better offensively. And then on my last pick, I was hoping to get Thunderous Therian and Darmanitan, but Thunderous Therian got taken 3 picks before it got back to me, so I wound up with taking Xurkitree, which I've never used before, but hopefully it puts in work, and Keldeo, which I use a lot. Both of the leagues I've won, I had Keldeo, and I've never not won a league I've drafted Keldeo in. Though this is a tournament, so it's not really necessarily the same. We only got one Z captain. I wound up picking Xurkitree because I find that Ultra Beasts really appreciate Zs. Whether it's Xurkitree runs an offensive Z like a Z Grass to break through a particularly annoying ground type, or if it runs like Z Hypnosis or Z Electric Terrain for speed control and to try and guarantee a tail glow. And then I also then have the... Yeah, but I don't know. Sometimes I feel like I should have gone with Z Heatran or Z Hydreigon as breakers. It's just how it feels, you know? But yeah, these are my matchups. One thing I noticed was... I played these from the inside Helmy to the outside BTB Raven, so I played Helmy and then Bronson and then BTB Raven. And when I played them, Helmy had beaten Bronson and BTB Raven, and Bronson and BTB Raven had not played yet. So the first match I had, I noticed, which is something you might hear from me saying, Amoonguss and Slowbro aside, Keldeo kills all of the other Pokemon on his team very well, including Spadef, Eviolite, Togetic. I had seen him use Power Up Punch Kangaskhan and just smash through, I believe it was Bronson at the time. I noticed that, he brought, Celesteela, Weavile, Goodra, Slowbro, and Mega Kangaskhan to both of his games. One game he brought Amoonguss, and one game he brought Togetic, and I expected very much the same. I expected Amoonguss over Togetic, though that may or may not have been what happened, so that was my thoughts at matchup. Basically, I thought I would run a defensive Rocks Heatran, because like just Magma Storm is very, very free against this team because all of the damage I get, Keldeo appreciates a lot. I ran a bulky Keldeo so that I could guarantee beat Weavile, but a bulky Specs Keldeo nonetheless, because I didn't really need that much investment to beat anything other than Togetic. I didn't wind up running like Icy Wind or I don't know, X's or anything for Amoonguss or Slowbro. I just wound up running Stab and then a Hidden Power, I think. So that was what I wound up going with. And I had Ribombee for Webs because Webs was really nice in this team matchup at slowing down the Weavile and the Mega Kangaskhan, which were really the only things that could stop Specs Hydreigon from going in, or Scarf, or a potential Scarfer to try and revenge Xurkitree, who I also brought to this team. If we want, we can look at what we saw at matchup was that he brought the Togetic instead of the Amoonguss, so he was very aware of the fact that he would need to defog in case I brought Webs. Yeah, so Specs Hydreigon, Specs Keldeo, or it might not have been Specs, it might have been... No, I think I was Scarf, maybe Scarf Hydreigon, just in case, and then just a standard Dragon Dance Mega Gyarados, because what else does Mega Gyarados need? And then you'll see that he didn't wind up bringing Amoonguss to the match, which, you know, certainly made Keldeo freer. It meant the only Pokemon that I needed to remove was Slowbro, though Slowbro is one of the best counters to Keldeo. It is not as good as Slowking. It doesn't appreciate getting chipped by Hydro Bumps, as well as by the fact that I have an offensive Bug type, an offensive Electric type, and 2 offensive Dark types. Well, I say offensive. I had max special attack on Ribombee, but Ribombee is not particularly strong. But yeah, so this is what I wound up seeing. He was definitely, like I said, very aware of the fact that he would have to defog away my rocks from Heatran and webs from Ribombee. So I wound up leading Heatran, which was always going to be the plan, because I could take a lot of damage from the Kangaskhan. I lived an Earthquake from full because I was pretty physically defensive. And if I got a Magma Storm off, then that just was so much nice chip. So my thought process here was protect, see what move he had to hit me. He goes for Power Up Punch. Like I said, I'd seen him go for Power Up Punch before, but I had a physically bulky Keldeo so that I could guaranteed just destroy him. So I hit my Magma Storm turn 1, and I know the only other thing I need from this Heatran is to get up rocks. And I thought he would expect me to protect again, and thus go for a move to hit Ribombee or Keldeo coming in, but he doesn't. He just goes for another Power Up Punch, gets a lot of attack. And here, I just decided to sack my Heatran. The more I protect, and I'm just going to spam protect because it's the only move which would get me anything, it means that I need to get more and more chip. He reveals the Drain Punch here. He really should have gone for the Drain Punch last time against the Heatran, because that would have stopped me getting rocks. But had I gone into Keldeo or Ribombee, like I said, that would have been really bad for him. Power Up Punch technically helps him against Ribombee. I wound up getting a pretty lucky triple protect there, which, you know, is just kind of how it happens. Triple protect is unfortunate, but it's like, what else was I going to click there? So that was luck, and it did change the way the game went. But the only reason he was in that position was because he had gone not for a move that would hit Keldeo or Ribombee on the switch-in, and not for a move that would kill Heatran, but for Power Up Punch, which was completely useless in this situation. So he put himself into a situation where he was in a really bad position no matter what play I made, and that wound up costing him his Mega Kangaskhan completely. So it was luck on my behalf, but it was just down to a bad play on his behalf, which put him into a position where I could luck him like that. As he did mention later after the game. So then next outcame the Weavile, getting in the rocks. I needed the rocks damage on Weavile for, I believe, Hydreigon, which is nice. It was one of the two big things I wanted to chip with rocks. I really wanted to chip the Celesteela, and I really wanted to chip the Goodra, but I would also wanted to chip the Weavile. And the Togetic too. I wasn't too worried about Togetic though. But I didn't need webs anymore because Weavile was out and it had taken rocks damage. And it turns out it's Life Orb here. I figured if he was banded, then it was also good to go Ribombee, because then he couldn't hit Ice Shard after. But yeah, I brought out the Keldeo to revenge. Like I said, it was physically defensive, so nothing he went for would be good. He would just be getting more Life Orb chip. You see that I did 30% to the Togetic with Scald. Hydro Pump does nearly 50. And the burn is really nice because it means that the Togetic is just even more completely neutralized in terms of future things. I fire off a Magma Storm here, and I do miss. Pay back for the triple protect. Fun maths. I am only slightly more likely to get a triple protect than I am to miss a Magma Storm, which is, yeah. Pokemon's a dumb game. But yeah, I just throw off a Protect here because I don't know what set this Goodra is. It could be physical, it could be special. I know he'd brought a Scarf Goodra in a previous week. A previous match, so I was paying attention to that. Though Goodra is, I believe, naturally faster than Heatran. So he's seen his leftovers, so I know he's not Goodra. But he's brought physical to one and special to one, so I wanted to see which one he was. He goes for the Earthquake here. I figure the fact that he goes for an Earthquake, I figured that it meant he wouldn't go for another Earthquake, because then I could switch hard into one of my... Specifically, I'm guessing he was thinking Hydreigon, because he went for the Dragon Tail there. So he puts me into my Gyarados, and I have Rocks up, so I go for a Substitute, and I do not Mega Evolve. I Mega Evolve and go for another Dragon Dance, in case the Slowbro wanted to go for Thunderbolt, then it wouldn't break my sub after I Mega Evolved, because Mega Gyarados is dumb bulky. So here he goes for a Signal Beam, and I'm like, surely he must be Culver Berry. He wasn't Culver Berry, he was probably... Oh yeah, he was Rocky Helmet, which helps him get Chip, which is nice. Not that nice, because I just kill his entire team from here. The Crunch just kills the Cell Stealer, so it must have been especially defensive or offensive. The Crunch, I was Crunch Earthquake, because I didn't expect the Togetic, like I said, but the Togetic just would not have been able to beat me at any point. I was doing 40%, so with Rocks up, I guaranteed to a KO'd. 40% was, I believe, a mid-roll, and he just goes for the crit here to hopefully late game with Weavile, though if he had gotten the crit, it wouldn't have killed, but even if he had gotten a crit and killed somehow, I could have just gone into my bulky Keldeo and, like I said, guaranteed beat it. He had previously brought Natural Gift Weavile, but I didn't really have issues dealing with Natural Gift Weavile because of my physical defense investment on my Keldeo. So he probably didn't even realize, he probably thought I was Mystic Water because I was less invested on my Specs Keldeo. Because I wasn't doing proper Specs Keldeo damage on that to get it. But yeah, like I said, I underprepared for thing, but he wound up putting himself in a really bad position by misplaying against the Heatran early on, and allowing me to get as much damage as I did meant that anything I had could have easily revenged it. So he just put himself into a risky position, and my Triple Protect just capitalized on it, and it just wound up being that I completely 5-0'd him this game. I didn't even bring out my Hydreigon or my Xurkitree, which Hydreigon was going to be one of my main breakers in the game, and Xurkitree was my intended sweeper if I had gotten webs up. Because, as you see, the team he built, the only Pokemon he really brought that easily dealt with Xurkitree was the Goodra, which I did have HP Ice for, and if he let me kill something before it, or if I'd hypnotized it with a Z Hypnosis, I think that might have been the set, then all I needed was 2 HP Ices after a Tail Glow to beat even a Spadef Goodra, and because he was Assault Vest, he wasn't Assault Vest, he was Leftovers. So that was my first game down. Like I said, a solid 5-0 in here. Then Game 2 was against Bronson, and you guys may or may not know, but he was one of the top players in the last TTM event, I believe, in the mid-season or something, the autumn. I don't know what the events are called off the top of my head. March Madness, that's the one I was thinking of. So I believe he top place there, and I know him through a VGC group that I'm a part of. Basically, his team is very different. I looked at this team, and I was really, really worried about... so Z Garchomp. Garchomp is a terrifying Pokemon. Mega Gallade is really fast. I only outspeed it with Ribombee, and it naturally lives a Moonblast from Ribombee, and I can't be modest and outspeed Mega Gallade. Suicune and Spiritomb are both really useful for Pressure Stall, so I was pretty worried about doing with them. Klefki is just an annoying, bulky Pokemon, so I just kind of tried to prepare on that. I figured the main problem with Klefki in this matchup was that it kind of had 4 move slot syndrome, because if it had a fairy move, then it didn't have foul play, and it couldn't deal with Roserade very well. If it had screens and spikes, then it couldn't afford Thunder Wave, which, if it has natural Roserade, didn't really affect it. It couldn't. If it had Thunder Wave, it couldn't have Toxic. And Thunder Wave, Toxic, and Screens, like I said, it needed a fairy move just to hit and make Gyarados and Hydreigon, who otherwise resist foul play. And that also made it worse against Heatran if it doesn't have Thunder Wave, which it would have been hard to fit. He had Shaman. I was very scared about an offensive Shaman, because offensive Shaman can just completely go in against my team. I was thinking specifically a 3-attack Synthesis Life Orb set was what I was mainly worried about. I figured a Nidoqueen would come that would be bulky and have hazards. And then just Scarf Garchomp was what I had in mind, alongside Set Up Mega Gallade, and then, like I said, Pressure Stall, Carmine, Spiritomb, and Suicune were both pretty intimidating. And Cinccino is a Pokemon that I like a lot, but I don't think it's necessarily amazing. So what he wound up coming to this game, as you can see here, I have the Gyarados, Xurkitree, Ribombee, Roserade, Keldeo, Hydreigon. I just brought a bulky Hydreigon so that I could deal with the Cinccino. A Specs Keldeo because it's a Keldeo, and Specs Keldeo just hurt everything. As much as it doesn't like locking into moves against this team, even like a Focus Blast does a lot, or not Focus Blast, the Secret Sword does a lot to the Mega Gallade, because Mega Gallade has a lot better special defense than physical defense, and it only has 68 base HP. I brought a Z-Hypnosis Xurkitree, which, if I set up Sticky Webs with my Focus Sash Ribombee, which was specially defensive so that it could deal with the Suicune and Spiritomb, I brought so much to deal with the Suicune and Spiritomb. I was Taunt Metronome on my Hydreigon so that I couldn't get stalled out of Roars. And then I had Life Orb Roserade just so that I could guarantee breakthrough Suicune, and hopefully threaten it out ultimately. And then just Taunt Mega Gyarados as well. And yeah, like I said, he didn't bring the Suicune or the Spiritomb, so I definitely overprepared for them. So I don't know if I knew at this point he was probably a Scarf Cinccino since he led it, and he didn't go for Substitute, but also he like stayed in against the Hydreigon, which does a significant amount of damage if I was like Specs, but I was defensive, so that didn't really happen. But I got the Flamethrower damage on Klefki, and I noticed it wasn't leftovers, which I figured meant it was probably screens, so I hit a Taunt to make sure it could only get one screen up. And then he switched out, which I figured meant he was probably Foul Play. And I managed to get the burn on the Nidoqueen. I just taunted it because I didn't want to set up rocks, because rocks meant that I wouldn't be able to preserve the Sash on my Ribombee. It turns out to be Ice Beam here. I just kind of let him take the Hydreigon. Well, no, I roost up on it because I can roost up on it because it was leftovers, not Black Sludge, as Cars points. I don't know why that happened. But yeah, basically, I taunt as he goes into Mega Gallade because he knew I was going to taunt there. He reveals to be Drain Punch, which confirms, yeah, he was a bulky setup, like bulk up Mega Gallade or something. So I go for a Quiver Dance here, which was a massive misplay. So I looked at the set, and because he had Drain Punch over close combat, I figured that meant he had Thunder Punch to check my Mega Gyarados, because he would need it to break my sub after an Intimidate. In case I was like just pure setup and I stayed pre-Mega. Which meant, because I figured he had Bulk Up because he was Drain Punch, I figured that meant that his fourth move was Thunder Punch, but it turns out his fourth move was Shadow Sneak. And because I didn't get webs up, that meant that I was really weak to the Garchomp, I was really weak to the Nidoqueen, I was really weak to any potential Scarfers he had left. Well, I wasn't really that weak to the Nidoqueen, but because all of my Pokemon outsped it. But basically it was a lot easier for him to revenge me, so if I had gotten the webs up, the game would have gone very differently. So here I go into my Xurkitree, and I let off a Z-Hypnosis, but he brings out the burnt Nidoqueen. As much as the burn was kind of nice for the damage, I knew that I lived literally any hit from this Nidoqueen. Even if he went for Earth Power, I did so he did 70%. I figured that meant he had gone for Earthquake in my head, and then I looked and he crit the Sludge Wave, which brought up from 45% to 70%, which is a pretty significant bump in damage. Basically, it'll just put a lot of bulk off of my Xurkitree. It meant that he could basically kill me with a lot of stab stuff, as well as it meant that if he was Scarf Cinccino, then it could kill me with Bullet Seed, which if he hadn't crit me, then he would have to go for the inaccurate tail slap, which I could just dodge. So that was unfortunate. But I wouldn't have been in that position. Well, I would have been in the same position, but I would have been in a lot better position against Scarfers had I gone for Sticky Webs. Because like Quiver Dance got me literally nothing. It was so that I could OHKO a somewhat bulky Mecha Gallade after the screens went, because I figured it was Thunder Punch, but that was just... I don't know. But yeah, so he brings out the Cinccino, revealing that yes, it is Scarf, but he goes for Tail Slap, even though Bullet Seed killed, misses. So the crit didn't matter, because he misplayed and just wasted what the crit gave him. Yeah, so basically I got a kill for no reason, like just going for an accurate move. Turns out he was also Scarf Shaman. I definitely at +5 smashed this, even if he was Assault Vest with a hidden Power Ice. Shaman's cool, and it's pretty bulky with 100, 100, 100, but this is Xurkitree, base 170 something, special attack at +5. I think it was like heading towards 3,000 special attack. I was like 2,600 and something, which is insane. So yeah, basically, he reveals that he was double Scarf, which I guess makes sense. He just kind of wanted to counteract Sticky Webs if I did click it. But so here I know that he's locked into Earth Power, so that is a free Dragon Dance. I go for the Taunt here on the Klefki. Oh no, I don't. I just Dragon Dance again. That's right. Yeah, I Dragon Dance again, and then I Mega Evolve, because I figure he's probably going to go throw a Thunder Wave or a Toxic, but he actually just goes for a Play Rough, which reveals that I probably shouldn't have Mega'd. So if I had not Mega'd there, I would have taken significantly less. And then I go for an Ice Fang here, and it turns out he was Sash Garchomp, not Scarf, after all, and I didn't need to Dragon Dance 3 times. So because I Mega Evolved, that meant that I was guaranteed in range, but it was a very small chance that I wouldn't have been in range. I think it was like I had 1 roll out of 16 that I could have lived if I hadn't Mega Evolved there, so the play was not particularly massive. If I'd obviously gotten a freeze or a flinch with Ice Fang, then that would have saved my Garchomp. But I may have been in range from a crit from a Shadow Sneak after. But basically I just got up to +3 speed just so that I could have the speed. So I guess this means that his last move was Toxic over Thunder Wave, or maybe it was Spikes. It probably was Spikes because he didn't go for that move, but I basically just didn't play correctly there, but I don't think it changed much ultimately. Anyways, I can go out into my Keldeo, guarantee kill something with Specs Focus Blast. I looked at it, and Specs Focus Blast meant that I killed the Scarf Shaman if you want to double into it to preserve a differential. But yeah, the Mega Gallade came out, its Zen Headbutt killed both of my Pokemon, because I didn't play with the webs earlier. Like I said in the chat, big choke. I just choked my way out of the game, and he said crit didn't matter. The crit only didn't matter, I guess, because he must not have had Bullet Seed on the Shaman, because the crit only really mattered because it put me in range of non-stab attacks from Cinccino, not Shaman. But yeah, basically, big chokes, big game losses, but he's a pretty prominent opponent, so I don't feel too bad about that. All I can do is learn from that. Ultimately, that was a pretty good match, and I definitely didn't play it as well as I could have, but I did manage to keep off rocks and spikes, so I played that bit pretty decently. Yeah, I just need to click webs there. If I hadn't choked, the game would have gone very differently, because if his last move was Defog on Klefki, which was his only Defogger here, Shaman, even though it has the Sky form, doesn't get Defog. So if it had Defog as his last move over Spikes, then Mega Gyarados can Mega Evolve and it couldn't Defog, and then I won because of webs. But I won with Keldeo instead of with Mega Gyarados. But that doesn't really change too much. Yeah, I just threw the game with that play. But yeah, don't overthink things, kids. And then now onto my last game, and this one really mattered because, like I said, at this point, Helmy was 2-1, I was 1-1, and Bronson was 1-1. So Bronson still had to play BTP Raven, and if I didn't beat BTP Raven, and make sure. So at this point, I had very good differential. Helmy was at 2-1 +1. I was at 1-1 +3. Bronson was at 1-1 -2. And BTB Raven was at 0-1 -2. So it came down to BTB Raven's last 2 games to determine who made it to playoffs. Because if BTB won were both, then Helmy and BTP made playoffs. If Bronson won and I lost, then Bronson went forward. If both of us won, then it came entirely down to differential. Though I had very significant differential advantage on Bronson. So I would have had to have win 1-0, and then Bronson would have had to win 6-0. So Mega Latios is the only Pokemon in this game which really, like, in this pool, which really was a card counter to Specs Keldeo. So of course the first Pokemon I put on my team was Specs Keldeo. Quagsire, I figured if it came, it was probably Water Absorb for the Keldeo. Gothorita is annoying. It just is annoying, but Specs Keldeo does a lot of damage. It can 3-hit KO with Focus Blast if I lock into that. If I crit one of the Sacred Swords, then Secret Swords can crit through Gothorita. I take Psyshocks and Psychics very well as Dazzling Gleam or Thunderbolt if it had coverage, so that it could hit my Mega Gyarados and Hydreigon instead. Moltres and Skarmory were both pretty annoying because Moltres could burn Mega Gyarados and Skarmory could Whirlwind it, could Brave Bird it, etc. It can take hits very well. I think it was like +5 I needed to be to kill Skarmory if it was physically defensive. Jolteon I thought wasn't amazing against my team. I have a Claydol, which is very hard counter to it because I can like if I came Protect Leftovers Claydol, I could like protect and heal up most of my HP on it. If I was screens, I could set up screens for free. I can Rocks and Spin for free on it. I also noticed that Skarmory and Infernape were the only Rockers on the team. Not that my team doesn't have a similar thing with only Heatran and Claydol, but Infernape I figured was probably going to be Scuff or Flame Charge, which I think Infernape gets, because it really appreciated the speed control against my team. I don't think Webs were very good because they don't affect the 3 main Pokemon I was worried about that are fast, which was the Latios, the Skarmory, and the Moltres. All it really did was hurt Infernape a little, and then the Jolteon, which I didn't think was coming. So I ended up going with a Heatran, and the Heatran I EV'd was to live a Volt Switch from a Life Orb Jolteon into a close combat from a Scarf Infernape, or a non-item boosted Infernape. So I was hoping it wasn't the Choice Band or Life Orb. I brought Keldeo just max speed because it speed ties with Infernape, and if Infernape wasn't Scarf, then I got to kill it for free, potentially. So there was no reason not to invest there. Quagsire, I didn't know if it was going to come or not because it doesn't beat my setup mons because Mega Gyarados has Mold Breaker, so it ignores Unaware, and it also ignores Water Absorb. But if it was coming, it was just for Keldeo, or maybe Rindoberry for Xurkitree. I looked at it and Xurkitree could put in some work against this team. Mega Latios dies to +3 HP Ice, or Shadow Ball, I forget which one it was, or Signal Beam. But I think it might have just been HP Ice if it was offensive. And Porygon 2 was the only real issue, but I could still set up to +6 on it. It couldn't Thunder Wave me because Electric type I was immune. And I could eventually just kind of Thunderbolt through it. Infernape, being a Scarfer, could revenge it. Jolteon just takes a lot of damage and doesn't do a lot of damage back to Xurkitree. So I figured, even as an immunity, it wasn't that great in the game. Gothorita could trap Xurkitree, but it's also just set up fodder for Xurkitree. Yeah. I brought a bulky Heatran. Like I said, just set up Mega Gyarados is just... It's a good setup mon. I brought a bulky Roserade with Spikes. I think it was Spikes, Leech Seed, Dual Stab, maybe. Because there were no Leech Seed switch-ins on the team, so everything got chipped. Like if I could Leech Seed and break Skarmory's sturdy, then that would be really nice for my Hydreigon. I brought a Scarf Hydreigon just as a pivot. So I'll end up leaving the Ribombee and I think the Xurkitree. I don't think I'll wind up bringing the Xurkitree because so I don't wind up bringing the Xurkitree just because if it didn't set up, like if I went for Z Hypnosis or Z Electric Train or something, there were a lot of Pokemon which were just kind of annoying. I didn't really worry. I didn't know if Gothorita was gonna come or not. Because it was annoying to some of my Pokemon, but not very much to some of them. I had Toxic on the Heatran. I was Magma Storm, Earth Power, Toxic, Protect. And the Earth Power changed from a couple different moves. Like I was thinking it could be Taunt, which meant that I would be Gothorita if I was Taunt, Protect, Magma Storm, Toxic. Earth Power was obviously for the big one. The Infernape and Jolteon. I could have brought a grass move. Fighting move, I think, for Porygon 2 because it's immune to Magma Storm. Though Toxic and Taunt is also pretty nice against it. Didn't wind up seeing some of the Pokemon I was more worried about. So I kind of thought with the team that wound up coming, Xurkitree actually was pretty decent against it. But I was still happy with what I brought. Claydol could basically set rocks for free on anything. So I led Heatran again. I didn't go for a Protect this time. Turns out he was Scarf Earthquake. Or she. The Infernape is Scarf Earthquake, which does a lot more damage than close combat, but was really shit. It was literally just for Xurkitree, which I didn't wind up bringing, because that actually kills Xurkitree, unlike Infernape's regular stab. But if the Infernape was Scarf, which it was, then it could just U-turn out and then hit it with a Flare Blitz after. So I don't think Earthquake was a very good bring or a very good play there. I just went for Earth Power to get damage on the Infernape because that was what really mattered. If I got up rocks with my Claydol, then it only having 2 switch-ins is amazing. And Latios was the only defogger that came. So if Latios had defog, then it wasn't like recover 3 attacks or roost 3 attacks, which is really nice, or like setup. I didn't think that it could afford to run setup and roost. Plus I got 2 dark types, so I wasn't sure if it would bring setup or just like a Bolt Beam Psychic. I Protect there just to try and get back HP. I Protect again. Turns out the Gothorita is Hidden Power Ground, so looking for a way to hit my Xurkitree. I throw for Toxic here. I wasn't sure if the Gothorita was Rest or not. So the Toxic chip is always nice. It meant that Keldeo was a better chance. I think I go for a U-turn here, because I figured I threatened it out, and I went for a Leech Seed here. So basically I just wanted to get Leech Seed damage on Porygon 2 if I could. I didn't bring Toxic Spikes, which if I had brought Toxic Spikes and set them up here, it was very nice for chipping down all of its team, because if I got up Rocks and Toxic Spikes, then the Infernape just died to a turn of Rocks and Toxic Spikes. Toxic Spikes is very good for chipping down the Porygon 2, the Quagsire, and the Gothorita, as well as the Jolteon to some extent, though Jolteon's not particularly bulky Pokemon. I had no idea whether this Gothorita would be Leech Seed. I'm actually Piapa Berry Roserade here, because I was Sleep Powder, that's right, Sleep Powder over a regular Grass Stab to hit the Latios. So Piapa Berry is pretty nice. Basically, I just go throw off a Sludge Bomb here, they go for the thing, and oh, look at all that damage it just took. It is in range of just getting chipped very savagely. So then they brought in the Latios, and I figured the Latios had to go for a recovery, whether recover or roost in that team, because of the damage it took from the Sludge Bomb, meant that it could no longer take Keldeo hits, as well as it had to Mega Evolve. So I go for a Draco here, and I unfortunately missed. That would have done a good like 40% to the Porygon 2, looking at the damage that I did to it later. But I figured this was a free turn to get in Claydol and go for rocks. Unfortunately, this does reveal to be a Rest Gothorita. I went for Levitate here because I went for Skill Swap here because that meant that I could switch out, but also that I could stop the Gothorita switching out if it wasn't Rest. But yeah, I just go to try and chip this as much as I can. I figured it doesn't trap me right now because it's it doesn't trap me because it's levitate right now, so I can pivot around it how I do. It turns out I think that its last move is, but basically I feel its last move probably wasn't Dazzling Gleam, because then it would be too free for, with Hidden Power Ground, it would be too free for Gyarados to set up on if I don't Mega Evolve, because it's not a particularly strong Pokemon. Basically, I go into my Keldeo, I throw off a Hydro Pump, it does 42%, which would have meant that had the Latios not been able to get out through a cover, and it had not been pre-Mega, it would have died after Rocks. I finally get off that Draco, it does 30%, so it was more specially bulky than I originally had thought. I go into the Keldeo because the Keldeo threatens most of the team. I figure the Quagsire's, turns out the Quagsire, it did come just to Water Absorb, which, good for it. It's having a jolly old time. Unfortunately, because I was Pyappa, I wound up missing a Leech Seed here, which is unfortunate because it cost me some damage on the Porygon too, but I go for the Sludge Wave, the Sludge Bomb, and I do get the Paralysis. I mean, that's why we run Sludge Bomb over Sludge Wave. Less damage, more Para chance, more Poison chance. I mean, I go into the Keldeo and then double to try and catch the Quagsire. And then I taunt the Quagsire so that it can't roar me, but then they go into the Infernape, which is sure a thing that happened. They go into a U-turn here. I figured out at this point the Latios most likely is not the Defog. It's probably moves. They sack the Hydreigon to a Dark Pulse. I do get 3 turns to sleep there, which is unfortunate, but if they roosted, they still would have been in range. I go for a flinch here, because the flinch would have guaranteed the Porygon 2 would be in range of another Dark Pulse after the poison damage, but it doesn't flinch. But in reality, like, the reason that Dark Pulse is so good is because it has that flinch chance. Here I go for a Focus Blast, guaranteed to KO the Quagsire. Quagsire is gone. They go into Jolteon. They predict me going into Hydreigon, which is dumb. Focus Blast kills Jolteon. I would have lived an electric move anyway because Jolteon is really, really weak, and I think they might have been Scarf. I go for a Focus Blast. It does 30%. I go for another Focus Blast, and I miss. Which meant that if I had hit that Focus Blast and then the next, I would have killed it. But instead they get a free roost off here. I do get a lucky special defense drop, which means now from full, instead of just after rocks damage, I can 3-hit KO with Focus Blast. So if I hit 3 in a row, which is just out of being in my favor, then I do kill this. And then I miss Focus Blast, and don't. And now I'm out of Focus Blasts, and I'm locked in, and I just struggle to get what minor chip that does. Basically, they just let me, yeah. Like I said, Focus Blast, not as good a move as Sleep Powder, because I got the 3-turn sleep. Yeah, but Keldeo just kind of winds up taking very nominal chip off of this Gothorita, and they take me out with Psyshock, just so that they didn't have sleep turns against you. So here I go into the Hydreigon, I go for the Dark Pulse. Here's another position of where I figure if I get the flinch, this is dead, and I get the flinch. Hydreigon eventually was going to be able to wear it down, just that flinch chance is very strong. And if not, I could have gone into my Gyarados and then taunted it and set up on it. If it wasn't Thunderbolt, which I never saw. This last move was Toxic, so like I said, it was set up for bait. It was set up fodder for the Gyarados, which is bizarre choice, I suppose. Yeah, so ultimately Hydreigon is just able to muscle through because of a Dark Pulse flinch, which, like I said, I was always going to go for that one Dark Pulse flinch. It's one of the ways I love Hydreigon, is its ability to just wear down and break through walls through Dark Pulse flinches. It's like Ashgren in OU. So ultimately, I wound up coming out of this league. Bronson actually 6-0'd BTP Raven at lead with Suicune, which I think shows where the weight of the league is in terms of the 3-2-1 players, and then the one player who went 0-3 and got 6-0'd. But yeah, basically, I just was able to wear through the team. It was a very weird, Infernape and Mega Latios, but I don't understand the Jolteon bring, and I don't think the Quagsire bring was very good. And I think both of those weaknesses, like Keldeo, as you saw, just completely destroyed and OHKO'd both of them. And I'm pretty sure they were both there to counter Keldeo. Don't bring shit mons to counter a good one. It doesn't work. Is kind of my thought process there, I guess. Like, it's not a Fungus. If it was a Fungus or a Marini, then that would have done a lot more. But if you only resist one of the stabs, which Jolteon doesn't resist either of the stab, and if you don't kill it, and you're even like the faster one, I just didn't really understand those brings, and I think those brings really cost B2B the game. But ultimately, got me the game. I wound up going 2-1, and I had the strongest differential, because even after the 6-0, I am 2-1 plus 6, and Helmi is 2-1 plus 1, and then Bronson was 2-1 plus 4, I believe, off the top of my head. So that does put me in the pole position. So guys, I hope you enjoyed me making my way through not misplaying out of 2 of my games, and yeah, I just hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you for watching, and I was your Mence the Amazing. Hopefully I will continue to go far throughout this draft tournament. Draft tournament is something which I haven't played before, but so far it's been a lot of fun. 8v8 is just really interesting. I did get to bring all 8 of my Pokemon, which was pretty good. So like I said, I hope you guys enjoyed, and we'll catch me in the next one. Thanks.